Hello, I'm Super Orange Cat. If you've been watching me, you know that a couple days ago I released my worst moments of Toonami 2022 list, so it is time to reveal the best moments of Toonami from 2022. Now again, similar format to my worst of video, I'm going to list in reverse order, so 5 through 1, the 5 best moments of Toonami. In between number 2 and number 1, I'm going to give some honorable mentions. So, without further ado, let's go on to number 5. Number 5 best Toonami moment of 2022 is having Shenmue. Now, Shenmue, I believe, released either like at the very end of last year, if I recall correctly. It definitely was airing episodes early this year. And it is, in terms of maybe overall commercial success of this generation of Toonami originals. So, I mean, like, when you throw, like, into compare it with, like, Fena and Blade Runner Black Lotus, it was probably the best received of the three. And it did fairly well in ratings as well, with a generally positive reception, especially by people who are fans of the game series. And again, and that was something I think of the three going into it, I was probably the least enthused by Shenmue. I wasn't hooked by Shenmue, to be honest, on personally. But again, I was never a fan of the games. I never even heard of the games when it got announced way back like 3 years ago, whenever it was first announced that we're getting this anime. But people seem to have liked it. However, if you paid attention to my worst of video, you will know that there will not be a season 2. Although there were at the time, there were plans for a season 2 of Shenmue. There will not be a season 2 as the show was written off by Warner Brothers Discovery. So, and again, and because of that too, you will not be seeing it on Toonami again. So, on to number 4. Number 4 best moment of Toonami in 2022 is probably the most recent one on this list, and that is getting My Hero Academia back for season 6. My Hero Academia is definitely the big ticket item on the current schedule of Toonami, especially since we don't have Dragon Ball anymore on the block. And I'll say that Naruto and One Piece definitely have their fan bases. They're kind of faded a bit more back on the back burner, though, relative to My Hero Academia, where although I said My Hero Academia's fandom, I think, is starting to decrease, it's still definitely very sizable and very devout to this day. And it's shown. The ratings for Toonami the last few weeks have been really solid, mostly in part due to getting My Hero Academia back at the front of the block, airing quote-unquote new episodes. They've already been available on Funimation. The dub's been available. But again, a lot of people coming back around to it when it's on TV, and it's really helping Toonami. So again, and that's why it's number 4. Would have been a bit higher if it was maybe a little earlier, I mean, rather in the year. And like if the whole season run had massive ratings, then it might have notched a higher spot in the list. But it definitely still deserves a number 4 spot. Number 3 best part of Toonami of 2022 is the simple fact that more originals were announced. And I guess you can do hyphen the announcements we got St. Patrick's Day 2022. St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. This past year was the 25th anniversary of Toonami's founding in 1997. And we got a few announcements for it. Most notably, the fact that we were getting 2 new Fooly Cooly sequels, that being Fooly Cooly Grunge and Fooly Cooly Shoegaze. Not many details have been released about the two yet, and they're supposed to air sometime this upcoming year in 2023. But, and I could go on about like how the general reception of those announcements were actually negative. But here's the thing I want to focus on, since it's the best of video, I'm going to focus on the positive things here. This proves that Toonami is still getting some money. And you could also say the same thing about getting My Hero Academia Season 6. Is that they haven't completely cut the budget for Toonami, at least since the merger for Warner Brothers Discovery. And albeit that announcement, the new show announcements were before then, it's shown that at least Warner Brothers and now Warner Bros. Discovery still have Toonami somewhere in their long-term plans. Which, again, like I said, Toonami, even with the write-offs, was probably spared the absolute worst of the acts. If you just look at what happened to TNT and TBS, they got the Grim Reaper scythe much harder than Toonami did. Cartoon Network was probably relatively spared as well. I think they just had a few write-offs of older but not quite fondly remembered shows. I'm gonna get all like the Clarence fans riled up with that one, all like 30 of them. But hey, you know, It's a risk you make when they make these videos, you know. But again, Toonami gets more originals announced, 2 Fully Cooley sequels, Ninja Kamui, which everyone forgot existed. It's something that's going to air sometime, presumably next year, maybe 2024. But Ninja Kamui, which I don't even remember much of what they described it, the description for it. It's going to happen. Rick and Morty's getting an anime adaptation, but that's apparently just going to be an Adult Swim original thing. That's not going to be Toonami. Thank God, we have way too much Rick and Morty presence on Toonami as it is, which is apparently an unpopular opinion. That being said, I'm going to go on to the number 2 best thing about Toonami this year, and this was probably the most pleasant surprise in my opinion, that being Housing Complex C. And why is this a pleasant surprise? Well, Housing Complex C was announced at the exact same time as those 2 Fully Cooley sequels back in March. The turnaround on Housing Complex C was insanely fast here, which is absolute whiplash when you're comparing it to another horror related Toonami original that's been talked about a lot, and I definitely mentioned in my worst of list, that being Uzumaki. Of course, there's massive differences between the two, especially in terms of animation. Animation for Housing Complex C was very solid, in my opinion. And also, I can go into the plot, the characters, and although they probably rushed the ending a bit, it still hit a lot of good notes. And it's the type of anime that makes you think, and it really brings up that type of existential dread, especially when you really think about what Kimmy is and what Kimmy could really do as a character and how effectively being a god, I'm just going to spoil stuff right now. Basically, being God, she can do whatever she wants at her choosing. She eliminates Kurosaki in the snap of her fingers. She kills what's that other girl's? That other girl who was her friend who turned out to be a cultist's parents that were like killing everyone like that literally pulls their shredded remains through a portal and dumps their entrails on her on their daughter Carrie style, which I absolutely loved how they did that. And there's only one thing, like I said, because this is number 2, only one thing happened this year that I liked more than this. But again, Housing Complex C, very solid anime. Actually, scratch that. It was better than Shenmue. I don't know what was better received. There was a lot of people who were down on Housing Complex C because of the ending, which I absolutely loved. But again, it's anyone's opinion on that. And the ratings for Housing Complex C I thought were decent too. So after number 2, I will go into the honorable mentions. These are things I thought were good things that happened to Toonami this year, but were not good enough or like too broad enough or like too esoteric, in my opinion, to really put in the top 5. One of those is getting Assassination Classroom Season 2. This is a show I liked and a lot of people did like. It's kind of been one of the more sleeper hits on Toonami in recent years. And the reason why I put this here in particular was that I went back and looked at all my videos, at all the announcements over this past year. This was the first good news of Toonami 2022. And this was after a fall of 2021 and early winter where it was very apparent the budget was not what it used to be. And people were worried, like, will we even get continuations of shows? Will we get Assassination Classroom Season 2? And we got it right at the start of the year, which probably implied that the budget rolled over at the start of each year, which, again, was something that people liked. And it was able to burn off some more space in the spring months of 2022. Another thing I liked that was a good thing was getting Loop on the Third Part 6. This is kind of the same thesis as Assassination Classroom Season 2. It's a continuation of a show that Konami's had for the longest time, and people were getting a bit worried that maybe we don't get these rights. We have to cut money somewhere. We might not get these shows, but we got Loop on the Third. Admittedly, part of the reason why might have been the fact that it's not the most glamorous in terms of fandom size, especially in the United States. Lupin the Third is one of those anime that does insanely better outside the US. You could probably have more people recognize Lupin in like South America than in the United States. Just like how in the US, One Piece is a big anime, definitely, but it doesn't quite get the appeal any given time as whatever the seasonal anime is. Like a few months ago, I think more people were into Anya Forger's antics on Spy X Family than like whatever Luffy was doing or how hot Nico Robin was, And it's like, I mean, they're big anime and it lasts the test of time. Like, people have been talking about some of these for a long time, but like, if you go outside the US, One Piece is massive. People will recognize Chopper just about anywhere, and especially in Japan. Japan, to this day, the only anime in Japan that has the widespread appeal or recognition of One Piece is maybe Demon Slayer, which just speaks to how massive Demon Slayer is. That kind of ties to my point about why these were big news. We couldn't get Demon Slayer season 2. We couldn't get Mob Psycho season 2. We couldn't get JoJo Stone Ocean, but we were able to get these shows, which implied we still had some money left in the tank. And another one I thought was a really good piece of news. I just mentioned the show getting One Piece back. Again, it's a show that surprisingly is done, I thought, reasonably well in the ratings, especially when you factor to the history of One Piece on Toonami, where it was pulled 2 separate times, both times citing the ratings. Once back in the Cartoon Network days, like in 2008 ish, and once just like a few years back, like 2016, 2017 ish. It was gone for a few years. We got One Piece back. Probably a sweetheart deal, but I mean, that's something I can definitely fill in the block because it's going to be here until the sun burns us all out. And one more honorable mention is getting Primal reruns to lead off Toonami. Again, Primal, Adult Swim original show, and there's that whole controversy where Gennady Tartakovsky, I probably murdered that name horribly, was very not happy at how they treated Samurai Jack season 5. He didn't want it to be seen as a Toonami show, so he went on and said he didn't want Primal to be seen as a Toonami show. So it's always labeled ever as Adult Swim original, Adult Swim original, even though you could definitely make a case that Primal fits in like an absolute fits the glass slipper of Toonami in terms of the content. Especially with the other American animated shows we've had in the past in the block, like anything with the word Batman on it, it kind of has that vibe. Definitely different time period, but vibe is very similar. And I think a lot of people can watch Primal. You could stick it right in the middle of Toonami, and no one will know the difference. No one will ever know. Dover Boys reference. Okay. With the honorable entrance out of the way, I'll go to the number one best thing to happen to Toonami this year, in my opinion. And I have to emphasize my opinion because I think I might be the only person to say this is the best thing in Toonami in 2022. If you followed my channel, especially if you look at my thumbnails, you can go back at this year and look at the Toonami related videos and look at the thumbnails. You might see one show comes up way more than the others, especially several female characters, including one with black and white hair I really, really enjoy. One about a couple of kids fighting the wilderness as they go to find one's mother. Yep, and you guessed it, that number one best thing is getting not just season 1, but also season 2 of Made in Abyss. This is no surprise if you follow my channel. I absolutely love Made in Abyss. I am currently following week by week season 2, doing weekly recap videos on Sunday for each of these episodes, and I'm just enthralled by it. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love the plot. Love the characters. There's very few down spots in the show in terms of quality. And it is the type of show that, like I said, like Promise Neverland season 1, which I absolutely loved too. It's a type of show at the end of each episode, your mind runs 1,000 miles a minute just thinking of what direction they can take it, where they're going to do with it. And it's somehow the actual plot ends up even better than those ideas. And I'm really just excited about the show. I'm enthralled. And another reason, an objective reason this time I had this at number one is it is the only show we got 2 seasons of this year. I think we technically got season 1 of Made in Abyss way late in 20. It was like the last show announcement of 2021, if I recall correctly. Either that or it was the first. That along with Assassination Classroom season 2 were announced pretty close together in early January this past year. Other side of that, it was insane because I distinctly remember watching an episode of season 1 Made in Abyss and flipping back and forth between that and watching the Olympic hockey match between the US and Slovakia. It was around early in the year. And also, we got season 2. Although, if you followed my worst of video, I did mention the fact that we did not get Dawn of the Deep Soul. However, to this point in the season, outside of maybe wondering what's this little thing that Ma's squeezing, or who's this girl's ghost that just appeared behind Rico in this past episode, you could probably get away with not having watched it. Although I have this weird feeling they're probably going to mention Reg's incinerator limit eventually and act like you should know what it is. But outside of that, I think it's just it's an absolute slam dunk of the show. It is one of the best anime of the 2010s, if not outright the best anime in my opinion. What do you guys think? What are your best things happen to Toonami 2022? What do you think? Do you think I got the nail on the head about this list? Leave your comments, leave your opinions down below. I am the Super Orange Cat, and that is all.